Okay. So now, before I get into my energy question, I
Okay.
wanted to ask because I know a lot of businesses here in New York that not only shut down, but they left New York.
Mhm.
How do we keep businesses growing here in New York? How do we do that? Or, um, it may be too late to bring those businesses back. But how do we encourage more people, especially the brown and black community, to
Yep.
establish these businesses here in New York and let's grow New York back to what it was?
Yeah, I think we can grow the city back and better, in fact. And again, some of it is the things that I've talked about, developing a economic equity council so that you can have input from people from around the city on ideas on how we move forward. I think that some of it is going to be providing technical assistance through small business development centers, bonding and capital. But I also want to use the pension fund to invest in other funds that invest in New York City small businesses, right? So I think as much capital as available is going to be important
Mhm.
for our city. But I also want to expand the MWBE utilization program. MWBE, for people not familiar, is the Women Minority Business Enterprise Program. The city of New York has a budget that's about $100 billion. Over $20
Mm.
billion every single year is contracted out, everything from paper clips to large construction projects. I want to make sure that, and then, when you talk about Blacks, Latinos, Asians, and women, they represent over 60% of the population, yet they're getting less than 20% of those contracts. I want to raise
Mm.
the utilization rate and make sure that we get even more of those Black, Latino, Asian, and women businesses to be able to contract with the city, and because those contracts, many of them are multi-million dollars, and will be the beginning of generational wealth for people in our communities. And so I will continue. I've done that work as a state senator. In fact, one of the things I did is I passed a law 2 years ago that allows the city of New York to grant no bid contracts to MWBEs up to $500,000. I promise if you make me controller that we'll raise that threshold to 1 million, and
Mm.
continue to give more access to contracts with the city to Black and Latino and women-owned businesses. And I think that's going to be an important part of what we do. But then also, the pensions fund itself, is $240 billion. And again, Blacks, Latinos, Asians, and women are over 60% of the population, yet they only invest 5% of the money. And so we really need to significantly increase our, MWBE participation as relates to the pension fund and those who operate in the pension fund. And again, those are things that I will do, and that will create economic opportunity, and but more importantly, jobs for people throughout our great city.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So now, okay, focusing on energy, what are we doing as far as, or what are you doing as far as youth STEM programs and bringing that into the city?
Mhm. Again, I want to not just invest on Wall Street. I want to invest on Main Street and in our schools. And so I will audit the Department of Education in order to look for ways to reduce class size, expand school-based athletics, add more music, art, athletics, and dance to the curriculum, and to add more programs around STEM and STEAM. But in addition to that, also want to look at trauma informed care as well in our schools. But when we talk
Mm.
about how do we develop a workforce for the future, STEM and STEAM programs are really at the forefront of that, and really one of the areas that we're going to really have to um, pay a lot more of attention to. And so
Mm.
again, especially doing with the audit function, being able to look at what we're doing with those programs, how many kids are getting access to those programs, and expand student utilization of STEM and STEAM programs throughout our entire system.
Nice, nice. Now, with talks of STEM and STEAM, is there more funding being put into the colleges? I know we have what I believe the Excelsior scholarship currently.
Yeah, yeah. So on the state level, we actually, and this is not a function for the city controller, but on the state level this year, because of the help of the federal government, we were able to fully fund our education formula this year, including the money for CFE. And so that's been incredible. We're spending more money per pupil in the state of New York than any other state in the history of the United States. And that's something, a real
Mm.
achievement. And so money is there. I think that one of the things I want to do on the city level is audit the Department of Education and how we give out the money, because I think we use an equality formula as opposed to an equity formula. And I certainly want to push the city towards using an equity formula. What's the difference? Equality means that every single school gets the same amount of money. An equity formula tells us that the schools that need the most get the most. And that's really important because there's significant gaps in our education system, and even in our public system. There's a significant, education gap, resource gap, and we really need to close that gap. And we can only do that by making sure that the schools that have the lowest performances, that have been historically been underperforming, get the resource that they need to allow all boats to rise together.
Nice, nice. And I'm sure you guys will develop metrics to see the improvement process for those schools that are underdeveloping.
Yeah, I mean, there's metrics already in place. The question is not metrics. We know what the metrics are, and we know what the numbers are. The question is putting the money where it needs to go and having the political will to make that, sometimes unpopular choice. Because, frankly, white affluent schools on the Upper East Side are not going to want to hear that they're getting less money and more money is going to East New York or Brownsville or the South Bronx. But it has to happen.
Right, right.
And that's what leadership is about. And that's part of why I'm running in this moment. And that's why I keep talking about equity. That's what real equity is. And it's, are you going to elect somebody who's going to have, the leadership capacity to guide our city through that process? And I certainly think that my record shows that I do.
Nice. So now, one last thing for my listeners. Where can they find more information on you? Where can they find more information about you and what you're trying to do for our city so they can make an informed decision come the election day?
Yes. So you can follow me on social media, Kevin Parker NYC. Again, that's Kevin Parker NYC. And I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, right? You can also go to my website at kevinparker2021.com. Again, that's kevinparker2021.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Senator Parker. Hopefully we'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks as comptroller.
Absolutely. Let me just remind everybody, again, Election Day is coming up on Tuesday, June 22nd. Early vote has started now and it continues to Sunday, the 20th. And so please get out, make a plan for voting, and don't just go vote, bring a friend.
That's right.